So, Wellesley, did you get the memo about Christmas jumpers today?
Yeah. Baxter was very clear in his memo.
It was pretty crystal, wasn't it?
Clear but late, I would say. Clear but late,
Well,
quite late.
In fairness, we haven't knitted these. I'm not sure who knitted yours, but
Granny Ethel.
even if it was late as our leader, I'd like to think you'd have made the effort, Steve.
There's some big supply chain issues at the minute. I don't know if you're aware of these,
At
but
the bottom of your wardrobe.
particularly around Christmas jumpers.
Okay.
It's been...
Right. Okay. Did you run that past the wife before you left? The
I
house?
asked the wife to get me a Christmas jumper. So if anybody's to blame...
When did you ask her?
I don't...
When did you ask her?
About a week ago.
Because I
In
would
fairness.
imagine in your household, it's quite tech. You know,
You
you
got your
communicate
Ralph
in
Lauren one.
quite a swift way. I'm kind of thinking she would have got the message if you had sent it to her.
I did definitely ask, but she didn't deliver, unfortunately. No.
Wow.
I don't think she watches the podcast.
I
after
can't-
that, so it's-
I can't wait.
This is getting recorded.
I can't wait until she gets a copy of this. That's on you, Bax. Please make sure
Figure her
that
out.
gets sent to Mrs. Motley. Perfect.
I'm going to have
Perfect.
to unfriend her on LinkedIn before this.
Well, I like the fact that obviously you got late notification, but you did dig deep. And how many wardrobes did you have? Did you have to go back to like 2010 or something to get that?
Oh dear. Yeah.
It's not
Should we
often.
move on?
Is it
Yeah.
not?
No, not yet, because it's not often. I get a point where I get a one-upmanship on you, and even with a rubbish Christmas jumper,
Yeah.
I feel like I've met the brief.
Shit,
I mean,
breaking the
let's be
devil.
honest, it's not the greatest, is it?
Yeah.
But I did meet the... Anyway, shall we move on?
But I did deliver. It's kind of a Christmas jumper, I would say. It's a cardigan. It's a Christmas cardigan, isn't
Wait,
It's just a cardigan.
From your
it?
granddad.
It's...
It's not too late. It's not too late. to take
I was
it
going to
out.
say, what's your granddad wearing today?
It's a bit cold.
I bet he's giving you a...
He's wearing the Ralph Lauren one that he's playing for. Sent it to the wrong person.
Has
Down.
he sent you a prepaid return box so that once you finish with it, you can send it back to him? Oh, my God.
Oh, dear.
Anyway.
I'm crying. I don't know if it's you're taking the piss or because of the dust of the jumper.
Dust off the jumper. Yes. Little moth flies out. The fustiness.
Are we
I
done?
can smell it.
Can we draw a line? Move on.
Temporarily, yeah, let's move on.
Right.
Bring you back up.
Right. Okay. So, welcome to episode 4 of Tomorrow's Workplace Today, the podcast from Spectrum Digital. Christmas episode today.
Yes.
Yes.
Very festive.
So we're going to do a bit of celebration, a bit of reflection, a bit looking forward to next year as well. I think is the kind of theme of the podcast.
Okay.
So yeah, let's start with reflections. 2021, good year for us from a
Yeah.
business perspective. What are the kind of themes? What are you going to take away from this year? What are the themes, the trends that you've kind of picked up from speaking to clients this year? Would you say?
Go on, I'll let you jump.
Oh, you're going to let me jump in?
Go on.
Thank you. I suppose the main thing for me is that companies have been, after the back of the first pandemic, if you will, they've been looking and they've been more active in exploring where they can deliver, more efficiencies in the workplace and enabling, as we're now, coming up to, problems in the near future. The hybrid working model and enabling, businesses, employees to work smarter, not necessarily harder, and not necessarily have to employ more people. So my take homes from this year and where I've had success has been very much where companies have actually now said, you know what, we can't carry on, working as we have been. We need to start recognizing that we need to make people work more efficiently. I think also the other thing is a lot of people that I'm talking to, certainly currently, is around customer experience and sort of making the customer's journey more enjoyable and I've used the word efficient a couple of times already,
Yeah,
but more efficient. So rather than having to, look at something in a particularly manual way or whatever, it's actually saying, actually, here, Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer, here's your information, and it's their fingertips. So
Okay.
yeah, the two
So it's
sort of things.
That digital transformation phrase that we hear a lot.
Yeah.
It's kind of that. I suppose the last year, 2 years has been a bit of a catalyst for that digital transformation, has pushed it on a long way over the last couple of years. That's kind of what
Yeah,
you're
that's
saying?
certainly what I'm finding.
Okay.
And I don't think that's going to change too much moving into next year.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I definitely think it's been accelerated. They keep using that word as well. So what people predicted would happen in 5 years is happening in 1 or 2. And people's plans, people's investment plans, people's strategies around investing in technology and that type of thing. I'm finding it from the top and the bottom. So that there's probably some SMEs where you'd normally expect them to sort of dig their heels in, didn't like change. Well, they've been forced to change. They've been forced to look at something different. And the more forward thinking younger MDs that I'm speaking to and FDs, they're technology first. They're wanting to put systems and processes in place to enable the staff, like you say, to better serve their customers, whether they're working from home or working in the office. They don't want any lag. They don't want any disruption. They just want it to be seamless. Literally pick up your laptop, work from anywhere. And then also, the mundane processes, people are actively seeking them out and trying to automate them and sort of saying, right, okay, this is a bottleneck. Why is it taking so long?
Yeah.
There must be something in the marketplace, and ultimately there is. So it's kind of, they're actually doing something about it and actually making decisions. Whereas last year, people were obviously a bit uncertain and dragging their heels a little bit. And the people with the biggest problems were forced to make decisions, whereas others was sort of trying to ride it out a little bit and getting help with the government and sort of didn't really know what was happening. Whereas this year, I think, people are pushing the button and saying, actually, no, we need to do this. We need to invest in this system or this process automation or whatever it is that they're looking at. But 2021's been very busy, but again, like you say, very successful for us. So it's been good.
I think also for me, just jumping back in, I think the other thing is, I think the government, they haven't had the greatest of years, have they, in fairness? But one of the things that they have done that I've noticed is, with that tax super deduction, I think it's enhanced people's decision making, because they're like, actually, do you know what? If we're gonna do it in 3 years, as Neil said, why don't we do it now? And we benefit from the fact that actually from a financial aspect, we're going to get something that's going to really enhance how we do things at probably a cheaper price. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's interesting, actually, isn't it? Because I think one of the trends that I probably expected you to talk about was the transition from on-premise to cloud. I think we've seen a lot of that.
Yeah, that's true.
But actually, a factor that we have had discussions around in that debate is the super tax and the fact that actually, if you capitalise an on-premise solution, then there are some certain tax benefits of doing that.
Yep.
So that's a conversation that you've been having with clients? Is that fair?
Yeah, definitely with FDs of bigger companies where they've, like you say, it's if it's a substantial investment, then there's more to gain, I guess. So that was, especially with one of my bigger deals that I did this year and bigger customers, those guys made that decision to go on premise and do it that way.
Because of the super tax element of it, or
and they were already moving their infrastructure to a private cloud anyway. So yes, okay, it's a from our perspective, it's an on-premise solution, but we're putting it in their server as opposed to going cloud native and full SaaS product. So it's I think you're right. I think that there's certain customers that have looked at it. I think there's been a huge shift in my deals that I've done. Definitely, it's gone from 80% on-premise to probably 90% cloud.
Really?
I think so. In the last year, it's been, I can only think of 2 of my main customers that I got in the last year that went on-premise. The rest have gone cloud. Even some that have been, they're multinational companies and they've got a lot of restrictions around security and firewalls and all that type of stuff and data. And but even those have had it okay to use our system in the cloud as long as it's set up correctly and configured correctly. So I think it's been an interesting one.
That it is interesting because I haven't seen that shift. I would probably say I'm 60-40 the other way. And 2 things. One, I've been surprised how many FDs that I'm talking to don't actually correlate the super tax deduction to software and the consultancy that goes with it. So when you tell them, it's like, great. Oh, actually, yeah, let me consider that. So, when you talk to prospective customers, I think in the main, I agree with you that the tendency is let's think about cloud because that's what everyone's moving to. But when there's a cost benefit to go the other way, it's seriously still being considered. And I think the other thing, interestingly, from my perspective, with regards cloud, only in the recent few weeks, AWS went down and literally Amazon drivers had to park up, didn't know where they were going. Anyone that had anything on AWS, so while it has lots of benefits, there's still things that even out of your control. The whole globe shut down pretty much that was on AWS. Yeah. And sometimes at the moment, I think until we know it's properly, robust, you can have your backup data centers and you can have all of that. But ultimately, if the system goes down,
that's a good point. I mean, is it robust? I guess is the question. Because yes, there was one example where it went down, but actually, what's that? 99.99999% uptime in reality. So, and linked to that point, actually, one of the things I wanted to talk about was Black Friday, big retail event, obviously around this time of year, and I wanted to pose you guys the question about whether Black Friday is good or bad for business, because I think there's two sides to it. So, from your experience, just generally in business, from speaking to clients that maybe get involved in Black Friday, what's your view on that? Who's going first?
I'll let you go first because I'm the Grinch on this.
I guess for me, you're right. You hit the nail on the head. It's a big retail event. I think in that industry, if you're retailing and you're trying to fulfill those retailers with distribution and bits and pieces around that, then it's great. I think you see, again, some of the software vendors. So obviously we're a value-added reseller. So we very rarely jump on that bandwagon and start sort of marketing that it's Black Friday and things like that. I've seen others that try and do
ideas now.
Say again. Backs is going to be up for it. But
as long as we're not flogging those jumpers.
Get a free Steve Motley cab. Should we do a cardboard cut out of it? Cut out with that with this jumper.
You could probably brand it, in fairness.
There we go, yeah. We got one little bobblehead dolls.
we said we'd drawn a line, didn't we? over the cardigan.
Okay. You've lost your train of thought, haven't you?
I have a little bit. But no, the thing for me is obviously it's great for retail. It gets them a bit of a cash injection. But then have they artificially dropped the price, or is it effectively a sale? We discussed it earlier in terms of with certain people, with certain companies, you could have got it the same price 6 months earlier, but it's I mean, if you're going to buy Amazon products, then great. It's I think the Fire and all them type of stuff drop in price quite dramatically. If you're going to buy tech like TVs and bits and pieces, it's all right. But in normal business, I don't think it really has an effect, except for, I guess, there's one user experience that I spoke to one of my customers, and she said that more and more purchasing departments of businesses are adding extra things on their orders. So it's like non-standard purchases. And we discussed this before with sort of set purchasing teams, and they're buying all sorts. And she literally gave me the example of we'd place our normal stock orders, but then the customer will say, oh, by the way, we're having a Christmas party. Can you buy me a Christmas tree and can you get me some jumpers and some crackers and other bits and pieces
this year.
But that's still going through the same system as a purchase, and they're still having to match up the invoices and bits and pieces. But for me, I think it works really well if you've got a decent system in the background. Now, most people will use the big players in like they'll go to Amazon, they'll go to Verio, they'll go to ASOS or whatever the big players are that are going to be dropping the prices quite dramatically. But I had one with my wife. I bought a coat for Christmas. Just saw it online, bought it, didn't think anything of it. Realised very quickly it was like a drop shipping type website because the customer care was absolutely terrible. So I think DPD got it wrong. The operator decided to send it back to the seller, and I'm like, where's my coat gone? And it was a bit of a strange one. And I'm messaging them, and like nowadays you message them on on all sorts of different channels as well. So you're messaging them on Facebook and on Insta and all this type of stuff. Nobody's getting back to me. Nobody's emailing. I'm thinking, hang on, have I been duped here? Is this just going to take my money and not provide the product? So but then the worst thing was, there was obviously a lot of women thinking the same thing because they were buying all these clothes, and the comments on the thread of this guy's Insta was getting absolutely pelted with women just like not happy whatsoever. So I think if these vendors are going to go down this system, and they might have a brilliant shiny website that looks great and it's discounting and all the rest of it, but if you don't have the other systems to back it all up connected, and I get it, if it's yes, okay, you're going to drop ship certain things and it's going to come from because that was the thing, I linked the two together. I was like, hang on, the company's in Durham, but my parcel's coming from Bournemouth. Like, how's this working? And it was just one of those where I sort of connected the dots. But yeah, if you've not got your systems linked up, then it could have a massive negative effect, because the irony is when the product arrived, it was really good. Wife liked it. And then, but she won't be buying from them again because of the experience. It was just one of those. I was like, wow.
And that's, well, JV, what's your view?
Well, I'm a bit of a Grinch when it comes to Black Friday, simply because, from being a consumer side of it, I don't necessarily see the deals per se. Might have been a sucker for Amazon last year and bought a few fires and what, but for me, I do agree with Neil, the back end side of it. I've got a couple of customers that everything is just fully focused around Black Friday. That's like a big event, and it's kind of like, don't talk to me for a month on the run up to it, and then probably don't talk to me for a month after it, because they're dispatching everything, and then there's a little bit of downtime. So I think if you've got robust systems in the background, then it's going to be and you're selling the right things, obviously, to warrant it being a Black Friday. But equally, if you haven't, then I think it's going to be it's a tough ask to give the customer experience.
I think I was suckered in. I think I bought a cartridge jet wash.
Oh my word!
But it was one of the, in my logic, I was thinking, well, I'll buy it out of season, because like if you remember last summer, everybody was buying jet washes to do the patios and the cars and stuff. So I got a ridiculous deal. It was like, I don't know, 80% off or something stupid. So I was like, yeah, I'll have that.
How many times have you used it in the last 12 months?
I haven't.
Oh,
so
I've
I
learned
got out
something.
of the box yet.
I actually didn't know there were seasons for jet washes.
Well, you asked John Moss, he spent like $1,000 on his. It was just like, he's got the Rolls Royce of jet washes for his pride and joy.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is you're pushing a spike of demand through the business, through the entire business, aren't you? So not just on the e-commerce platform and the fact that you need cloud in order to allow you to scale on that front, but also your procurement and your finance department and your logistics department, they have to feel that ripple all the way through the business as well. And you need joined up systems to be able to accommodate that.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, the customer experience gets hurt.
Yeah.
And it has a massive knock-on effect for repeat business.
Yeah. Okay.
100%.
Good stuff. All right. So bit of reflection then. What about predictions, Mystic Meg time, predictions for 2022? What are you expecting of the new year? What are you expecting to see and hear from clients?
For me, I think it, as I said earlier, I think it could be pretty much the same.
Okay.
I definitely think, this digital transformation journey that's been, ignited through the pandemic we're not even, halfway through it, I don't think.
Okay.
Because I think now that the mentality is around what can we do more efficiently, and rather than necessarily putting heads on or bums on seats, what can we get software or systems to help us with? So I think,
play devil's advocate on it. Do you not think the businesses that would do it will have done it over the last 2 years? Because if they haven't done it over the last 2 years, what's going to make them do it now?
Yeah, that's fair question. For me, I think that one, there's availability of people being able to deliver the solutions that someone wants. So sometimes if you show an interest and then it for whatever reasons it can't be delivered, it's like, all right, well we'll put that back. And also, there's other things going on in companies' priorities that while it's on the map, it may not be at the top of on the top of the roadmap of what we need to do. It's like, we're aware of that. Yeah. But actually, getting at the moment, supply chain is a massive issue. I know myself, waiting for a car and it can't get delivered because it hasn't got processors and, processing chips, etc. So I think that would be my response, is that I think everyone's much more aware of it.
Yeah.
And while it may be a priority, it may not be the highest priority at that particular time. In the last 2 years, a lot of it's been about keeping their heads above the water. It's about making sure that they're getting the product or whatever they're selling in.
Okay.
So I definitely think we're all right. Let's say we're halfway on the journey, but we're still inundated talking to people that want to look at things, and I think also there's a lot of things. You start in one particular area, finance, and then someone in operations goes, "It's really helpful if I could sort my works orders or whatever out," and it percolates around the business.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that. And for Neil mentioned it a couple of minutes ago. For me, I think it's because we're moving into this, or we're in this digital age, but because we're moving this digital, I think customer experience is going to be a key thing. People are going to want better service, better communications, because if you can communicate with people in a digital manner, we were only talking to someone yesterday who was saying actually, communication is really important. And I agree. I think me as a consumer, I look at suppliers that won't or don't communicate, and I'm like, will I use them again?
Yeah. Okay. So taking that digital transformation, we've done a lot in that kind of back office, I guess, of business, but actually you're saying we're going to see more of that in the front office, more in customer service, more in customer experience, try to automate more of that kind of journey.
I think they expect it as well. I think, like you say, I think the big behemoths like Amazon sort of lead the way, and people try and catch up with that level of customer care, customer communication, like you get the notifications, it's on its way, all that type of stuff, and people just expect that in B2B as well. So we've got solutions in place at some of our customers where they, with the EPOD solutions and all that type of stuff, they want to know when the goods have been dispatched, and they want to know when it's going to be delivered and estimated arrival date, and then they want an electronic copy of it when it has, with the photo evidence and all that stuff of the Amazon man or the DPD guy dropping it off on your door and taking a picture of it in my Christmas jammies in there. Stuff like that. But yeah, they want proof of delivery. They want picture evidence now. Now it used to be a piece of paper to say proof of delivery. Now they want a photo and geo mapping and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah,
but
that's a good point.
But to touch on your point previously as well, I think technology doesn't stop. It's always evolving. So you're right. I think someone might put some big systems in place like an ERP or a finance system or a CRM, stuff like that, the big core systems. But even there's always iterations, new versions out. It's always having to keep up with that. And if you don't keep up, it's a bit like if there's been a big shift in the way that people use the systems, then, I mean, the biggest shift is obviously enabling people to work from home or work from anywhere. And then how does that affect things? I remember ringing like Halifax, talk to them about my credit card statement or something, and there's someone in the room, and they're in the house, and the kids shouting in the background and things like this, and it's a bit like, okay. And then she's telling me, oh yeah, I'm normally working in a call center type thing, but we've all just had to adapt. And how do we make that the norm? But then how do we make sure that there's no business disruption depending on? So it's that robustness. But I think you're right. I think 2022's the momentum's going now. The momentum's gone. You can't put the genie back in the bottle type thing. It's like, we're on this journey. And I went to a presentation up in Newcastle, our Newcastle office, and they were already talking about Industry 5, like the smart factory. And it's moved past Industry 4, and people that are still in Industry 3 are struggling to keep, and it's already moved past that. So these guys have spent millions and millions on putting robots and cobots in place on the shop floor building things, and whether it be cars or whatever. But then it's the systems behind that to make sure that these robots are as efficient as possible and their uptime. So they were looking at data to actually try and track and trend when was the best time to do the proactive maintenance, and if it does go down, what's the effect on the production line, and let's put pounds and pence on that. Like I think they quantified it something to do with like 40 million or something ridiculous. So the business case was there for them to put some more systems in place, using sensors, using other bits and pieces, but then the data. How do we collate all that data? And the irony was there were still people running around with clipboard and pen and Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah.
And this was, again, a big global manufacturer that was like, wow, okay, so you've spent millions and millions on the shop floor, but you've still got people using clipboard and pen.
I think, sorry, Neil, I think that's the other thing. So we were saying, my opinion is, I think we're sort of coming up to halfway through that digital transformation journey. And there are, smaller companies than, a global brand that are moving into digital age. And I think you just said it there, data and using that data. So one of the great things with Amazon or whoever, the data they use to then be able to say that, my wife's buying habits are this, and this. I think in 2022, the people that have started, utilizing our solutions or utilizing software solutions are going to then say, all right, we're now generating all this data.
What do we do with it?
What do we do with it? And how can we then use it to be, financially, beneficial or manpower beneficial, for me, I think that's another trend. You've just highlighted that, and there'll be much smaller companies that aren't, that are working the same way, if you will.
No, definitely. And there's technology out there with cloud technology where they can start as they mean to go on. So yes, okay, with any, with any shift, whether it be a pandemic, whether it be a recession, there's a shift, isn't there? There's certain businesses that don't survive, but then there's going to be others that there's quite a lot of obviously startups and things like that. So you can probably get started very quickly with some good core systems, whether it be finance, CRM, bits and pieces around the edges. Start really lean, grow quite quickly, and then it's like, how do you then scale quickly and then build the bits around the edges to sort of keep that momentum going, that facilitate the growth, I guess.
So quickly, just to kind of touch on that point, and one of the things that we debate a lot with clients and internally actually is this debate between buying a software solution off the shelf, plug it in, and it'll start doing a job for you, or going and building a software solution bespoke from using development. And I know we've got all those horses in the race, if you like. We sell off the shelf products, we sell development, we sell stuff in between as well. So I'm interested in your view in terms of the future and where you see the big growth and what the conversations you're having with clients around that kind of debate.
I guess for me, what I keep seeing in the marketplace, if you look at like the PR, I guess, around funding rounds and people's new valuation of certain businesses, there's a lot of unicorns and all this type of stuff that are growing quite quickly, like Monzo Bank and all these sort of big. They're fixing a problem, but they're trying to scale it en masse, very low barrier to entry to getting people in onboarded, I guess. And SaaS is the same. Like a lot of the like Pipedrive is doing really well. We use that as a CRM. But you can download it, get using it in minutes. It's literally off the shelf. It has different tiers, different pricing bandings. So again, you start use it, it gives you all the bells and whistles for 14 days for free or whatever it is. And then obviously after that, you've got to subscribe to whatever, it auto renews and all these subscription sort of things. And then they lock it down on certain features and just give you the basics depending on what your requirements are. But I think if you look at the marketplace, a lot of those, they're trying to, the ones that want to scale really quickly are trying to solve a specific problem that a lot of people have and then charge reasonable small amounts and then take away that barrier to entry. So it's really easy to onboard. You're up and running within a couple of days, but it's very generic problem. I guess the more complex the problem, the more bespoke you need the development.
I guess that's my issue. I get from a CRM point of view, most people are, if you use Pipedrive, if you use, Salesforce, or you use, Sage CRM, then you're going to get used to a particular out of the box. This is how you use this solution. But for me, when I'm talking to clients, it's consultative, as in I want to understand what they're doing, knowing that like you said, we've got different horses in the race, what works. And I just find that by adding value, by being able to go, I understand your processes, you don't want to change them, but if they could be automated or whatever, then you're gonna benefit in a multitude of ways. So for me, I still, it's just what I prefer. I prefer the understanding of the problem and then being able to deliver the solution,
tailored to that particular problem rather than one size fits all.
I guess
sorry, Steve. I think that they're also very honest. So, like when we're having that initial discussion with people, if their problem isn't big enough and we know it's not going to warrant the investment that we think it'll probably need, we'll just tell them to either stay as they are, or we'll point them in a direction of another product that's. And we've done that with the print side of things as well. So it's we're not going to waste their time or our time going down a process, doing demos and really going into the granular if they haven't already exhausted the other off the shelf type options and found some of them again they've tried it and it's not fitted their specific nuance, that they've got a specific use case that just doesn't work for them. So they've had to develop something, or
I think for me, it's kind of how important is this process in terms of your differentiator in the market, your unique selling point. Because if it's nothing to do with that, and it's just a generic process that doesn't differentiate you from the competitors, then let's look at an off-the-shelf product potentially. Definitely. If it's core to your value proposition and by definition means that it's different to other people, there's probably not going to be a product which meets that requirement, and therefore you're into more bespoke development. And then you've got the emergence of kind of low code and no code technology as well, which is a combination of the two. And I think, my view of the next 12 months, I expect to see that grow a lot because it's a great technology, and also because there's just a lack of good developers out there and you have to pay a lot of money for them.
100%. Yeah, if you're going to develop something, it's going to cost you a lot of money. Like you say, it's better to configure. So there's two bits in my mind. You either are a big enough company that you've got a decent IT team that can take on something like no code, low code. But again, you've still got to understand that business process that you're trying to fix. So our consultants will look at it from a business process perspective, and then our implement team can obviously map that out and then put the correct sort of pieces of the puzzle together. And even some of the really clever sort of no code, low code stuff now that I've seen is you can input all the data in the documents and it'll analyze what you're trying to achieve, and then it'll even suggest itself based on the data. Here's how I would set this up, and
using
then
AI,
configures it using AI, which is really clever. And then obviously human can then tweak it and do bits and pieces off the back of it. But it's streamline that, or accelerating the delivery. So you've got quite a complex problem, but development might take 2 years and off the shelf don't fit. So what we've got this sort of hybrid in the middle. Okay, so let's take some really clever tech, let's configure it how we want, but then let's try and take a 6-month project into a 3-month project into a 1-month project and see how quickly we can get up to speed. Because you're right, our competitor down the road is doing it faster than us, and that first to market, or do we need to keep up, or what's the alternative, I guess.
And let's deliver it agile. Let's get a minimum viable product in. Let's get some value from the solution, and then let's start iterating it from that point.
I suppose, I completely agree. I suppose the good thing is what we can guarantee is that none of our consultants will come in a cardigan like yours.
I was waiting for that last point.
Right, so let's wrap it up. So that was episode 4. I hope you enjoyed it. I forgot to do introductions, so apologies for that. My name's Steve Motley. I'm the head of digital at Spectrum Digital. I'll let my esteemed colleagues introduce themselves.
Yep, so I'm Neil Wells, one of the digital automation consultants here.
And I'm John Van Oom, also a digital automation consultant.
Cool. So I hope you enjoyed it. I think the theme of this podcast has really been my cardigan, unfortunately for me. So I think it's only right that we end it with a bit more debate on the cardigan. So I'll give you 30 seconds.
Is that coming out on Christmas Day? I think you're going to have to do it now.
I don't think it's coming out ever again.
I genuinely think that it might be a useful fire starter on Christmas Day.
Use it as a drafting excluder.
It needs to go.
Barnhouse.
Yeah, and if we do a Secret Santa, maybe we should all chuck some money in and get him actually a proper Christmas jumper for next year.
I think I'm going to keep it for next year for the podcast for next year.
That's it.
Can we?
We'll bring it back.
I think actually, like with football shirts, where you get your famous football shirt and you frame it. I think we should frame that and put that in your office.
It might come back into fashion.
Never.
What I'm thinking.
No chance. The only thing you could do is maybe chop it and make it like a dog coat or something.
His granddad has got the Ralph Lauren one, I'm telling you. It's just gone to the wrong house.
On that note, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much. I hope you had a good 2021 and enjoy 2022.